This week on Dateline Abuja, the security situation in the nation's capital is top on the agenda. Bwari Area Council has been hit by kidnappers in multiple areas, and we went there during the week to hear directly from the victims in our focus on the FCT. While we update you on the major stories from Nigeria's presidency, our guest gives us some insights as to what has made our once safe Abuja unsafe, and what the security and the FCT minister should be doing right now. This is Dateline Abuja. Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kayla Megwa. Let's begin with the update on the major stories from Nigeria's seat of power in the past week.
Earlier in the week, President Tinubu ordered the immediate suspension of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu, from office with immediate effect. In the statement signed by the Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngelale, the suspended minister was directed to hand over to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation and to fully cooperate with investigation authorities as they conduct the investigation. The Executive Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has been directed to conduct a thorough investigation into all aspects of the financial transactions involving the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, as well as one or more agencies thereunder. A spokesperson to the People's Democratic Party's presidential campaign organization in the 2023 elections, Daniel Bwari, has pledged his full commitment to supporting the administration of President Bola Tinubu. He was speaking after he paid a visit on the president at the State House in Abuja.
At this difficult time, what we need is to throw our support and then see how we're able to navigate around, because there are difficult things in this country: hardship, poverty, insecurity, and the only way we can come together and support the achievement of this objective, I think, is for us to give our best in supporting the administration. So I came to congratulate him and then to tell him that I'm particularly excited about the recent policy decision he has taken to demonstrate that he's about the people and not just protecting his people. He took decisions against certain ministers who allegedly were, said to have committed infraction.
President Bola Tinubu has slashed by 60% all federal government delegations for both foreign and local trips. The Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Mr. Ajuri Ngelale, while addressing a press briefing at the State House, said the president is determined to bring total sanity and prudence to the management of government funds. The directive affects all ministries, departments and agencies, including the Office of the President, the Vice President and the First Lady. The Special Advisor said a fewer number of staff will be allowed to travel for foreign trips as they are more expensive.
4 members of their staff, appointees and the like, will be allowed to travel with a minister on an official trip. For heads of agency, that will be limited to 2 members of staff allowed to travel on an official trip. On international trips, the President has directed that no more than 20 individuals be allowed to travel with him. That number will be cut down to 5 in the case of the First Lady. 20 for the President, 5 for the First Lady.
President Bola Tinubu has met with Governor Siminalayi Fubara of Rivers State at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. Mr. Fubara, who arrived at the Presidential Villa at about 5:40 in the evening, went straight to the office of the President, where they met behind closed doors. The reason for the visit was not disclosed. After about an hour, Mr. Fubara was at the press gallery of the State House, where journalists tried to engage him on the outcome of the meeting. He, however, declined to speak, saying off camera that he was only invited by the president and that the visit was a private one. Now, it was a hectic day at the Supreme Court in Abuja during the week as the fate of several state governors hung in the balance following lower court judgments that posed a threat to their positions. The 5-member Supreme Court panel commenced by confirming the election of Babajide Sanwo-Olu of the All Progressives Congress as the governor of Lagos State. Governor Bala Mohammed of the People's Democratic Party was affirmed as the governor. The much-anticipated judgment for Kano State saw the Supreme Court overturning the dismissal of Kano's Abba Yusuf of the New Nigeria People's Party by the Court of Appeal. Governor Dauda Lawal affirmed as the governor of Zamfara State. The election of Francis Nwifuru as governor of Ebonyi State was also affirmed. The sack of Governor Caleb Muftwang of Plateau State was set aside by the Supreme Court, and the victory of Alex Oti as Abia State governor was also affirmed, as was that of the governor of Cross River State, Basi Otu. Following the Supreme Court's judgment that has affirmed his election as governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu says the judgment is a call to action for all Lagosians to continue to work for the development of the state.
Pretty much, it's really just to thank all of our citizens in Lagos for their support, irrespective of what party affiliation you are, and to call everyone, all Lagosians, to join us once again on our Greater Lagos journey. It's a journey where we've said no one will be left behind.
President Bola Tinubu has held a meeting with state governors of the All Progressives Congress, also known as the Progressives Governors Forum. Following the closed-door meeting which held at the council chamber in the State House, the chairman of the forum and governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, said the meeting had focused on the working relationship between the federal government and subnational governments. The governors also applauded the president for some funding interventions to the states, especially as it has to do with alleviating the current socio-economic situation in the country and his efforts towards addressing insecurity.
Welcome back. The Abuja-Kaduna Expressway and the Bwari Area Council are the recent theatres where the activities of non-state actors have been prevalent in places like Mape, Pachin, Garam, Kuduro, and Ida. There are reports of civilians caught in the crossfire between the military and these criminal elements. And residents tell us their horror stories of being kidnapped and paying ransom to their kidnappers. This week in our Focus on the FCT, we listen to their stories. Please watch this. Nigeria's insecurity is a thorn in the flesh of its people, particularly in the north-central parts of the country. 2023 rounded up with two very sad attacks in Plateau State. And there have been reports of attacks on states surrounding the FCT, such as Niger and Nasarawa states. For over 2 hours, motorists plying the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway were stranded as protesters blocked the Bwari axis of the highway to protest the high rate of abductions in their communities. They are residents of Ida, Panshin, Gidangdogo, and Gina communities along the highway on the fringe of the Federal Capital Territory.
Last year, December, my brothers, my cousin here in this village called Godna, were kidnapped. They kidnapped people from my brother's house, a pastor who owned a church here. And as a result of that, they demanded for 20 million naira as the negotiation was going on, and then we were able to raise about 10 million naira. But I didn't know what happened. They still killed our brothers. They killed 3 of them.
Apart from the protesters, some motorists who plied the road confirmed the insecurity on the highway.
As you can see the road, most people that are supposed to ply the road, they are not plying the road because people are afraid because of fear of being kidnapped. So we take risks to ply this road. We are always taking risks to ply this road. Even before getting there to this place, I stopped about 3 kilometers to pray because I know I'm passing a very risky route.
According to the protesters, no fewer than 20 people have been abducted from the communities between November of 2023 and January of 2024. The latest kidnap of 7 people from Gina community in the early hours of Friday sparked this protest as the protesters called for the intervention of President Tinubu.
We can no longer sleep. Just this morning, they have kidnapped 7 people from, what's the name of this community? Jidna community. And this is just one of it. Within the last 2 weeks, we can talk about 20-something people that have been kidnapped, unchallenged, without any, even the rape attack, they cannot do. We want to say we are beginning to lose confidence in the Nigerian security because we have been pushed to the wall.
4 residents of communities on the Bwari axis of the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway have regained their freedom. Residents say they were released after paying 17.5 million naira to their abductors. The victims also narrate their ordeal in the hands of their abductors. Bawa Ishaku and Emmanuel Joel can barely walk or sit without support. They are among the 4 lucky victims who regained freedom from kidnappers in communities on the fringes of the Federal Capital Territory along the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway. Now in the company of family and friends, they narrate their ordeals.
They asked for a ransom of 130,800,000 naira. On the day they said, if I don't bring the money, I will be killed. God in his mercy worked a miracle. Yesterday, I saw family members and I praised God.
They released us because our family paid 17.5 million naira together with 5 bikes, 2 4 Hondas, then 1 Bajaj.
Both Joel and Bawa spent 14 days in captivity, moving from one camp to another with so much uncertainty of their freedom.
How long did you stay?
Listening to the experiences of Bawa and Joel, who just regained their freedom, the residents have unanswered questions on the security situation in the country.
Who is in charge of security in Nigeria that have refused to allow the people breathe? We pay a lot of taxes, our security, military, and all the agencies. Every year in, year out, we do a lot of budget to secure the, have they secured the country? What is their work? Who is in charge of security in this country? What have they done to save the poor man? Look at our people. Somebody was kidnapped 100 and something days. Government have no solution.
Okay. We also spoke to the traditional ruler of the affected communities about a possible solution to the insecurity in his domain.
You are sending a military man, maybe it's from Lagos or Dodo Barracks, and you don't know Nata Chibdon. How do you expect him to succeed? There is no way he will succeed. By the time they add us with our people, some of us were born here and some of us will die here. So we know our places, we know where there are problems. So by the time they add those ones, those our youth, they will lead. Even the local vigilante, they should empower them. If you go to America, like example, you will see different type of security. We should create, in fact, security should be more than anything. Because if there is no peace, there's no way we sit down here and discuss.
The police have mostly said that these numbers are being exaggerated. Despite this, insecurity is on the rise in many rural communities along the Bwari-Kaduna Expressway, a development that residents say is unprecedented. Meanwhile, these rural communities in Abuja and on the border between the nation's capital and states like Niger, Kaduna, Kogi and Nasarawa State have reported rising insecurity. And the residents want the security agencies to go after the kidnappers and other criminals that have made life unbearable for them. My guest on the program is a security expert, Mr. Kabiru Adamu, and he has some insight for us as to what has caused this insecurity in the FCT, what the FCT administration and the FCT minister in particular should be focusing on right now, response times to security breaches by security agencies, intelligence gathering, and the accountability mechanism necessary to ensure all tasks with keeping the FCT secure play their part. Mr. Kabiru Adamu, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
My pleasure, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. The security situation, especially in this part of the country, has become something of worry for a lot of us, especially in the nation's capital. In fact, recently, we were just listening to the Director of Media Operations, Director of Defense Media Operations, where he was speaking about, the efforts that have been made, especially with the Northwest, is Operation Whirlpool, I think, and talking about a lot of the work that they've done to, arrest bandits and terrorists and kidnappers in this area. And they started off with that January 6th incident along the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway. And I know you're intimately involved in that particular matter. And then, the combat. They said they were in combat with these terrorists. And, we've heard so many disappointing stories. Apart from that, even in Bwari as well. There are a lot of similarities with the kidnappings along the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway and the ones in Bwari. At least I've noticed that the ransom money is about the same, which makes me believe that this is probably the same gang operating in this area. From your experience in this sort of work, what do you think is really going on here?
In simple terms, the non-state armed groups that are operating within the North Central region and to an extent in the Northwest are still active. In spite of the ongoing security forces operation to stop them, they have shown clearly by the spate of incidents that we recorded towards the Yuletide period and then in early January, that they are still active and that the efforts by the security forces to incapacitate them has not yielded the desired fruit, unfortunately. Now, in simple criminology, if you want to address criminal offenses, in the crime triangle, one of the things you try to do, you stop the perpetrator from benefiting from the proceeds. As at today, these actors, they are still able to demand, they are still able to collect ransom, and then they're able to spend it. The saddest part for me, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, is that they are still using our financial institutions in some instances to collect this ransom. There are two banks that come to my name. I wouldn't want to mention them, but I'm sure everybody who is in this space knows the two banks that I'm talking about. They still use those banks mainly. They still use some of the more conventional banks too. Then secondly is the fact that they are able to communicate through the GSM networks with the victims' families. As if, for instance, there is no capability within our security forces, when I know from experience that our security forces have capabilities for monitoring such communications. And then lastly, unfortunately, is the vulnerability of our various communities. The farther you go from urban city centers, the thinner the security presence in those locations. And so these non-state armed groups, criminal groups, take advantage of this thin security deployment to carry out these attacks. Then for specifically to Abuja now, and to an extent in Kaduna, is the topography and the natural environment. The fact that especially in the border communities, you have forested and mountainous parts that provide cover for these non-state armed groups and criminal gangs. I can't overemphasize the need for collaboration between the various security formations, both in the FCT, which to a large extent in the hands of guards of brigade, and then of course the police command within the FCT. Of course you have the SSS, and then several other, almost about I think 14 or 15 other security law enforcement departments that are embedded within the FCT. They need to collaborate better, perhaps through the G7 platform that I talked about earlier on, or some other platform, so that they can monitor the activities and movements of this group, and then of course be more proactive in preventing their activities as against waiting until it happens and then they now go after them. And then sadly, in a very ineffective manner. You referred earlier on about the incident along Abuja-Kaduna Highway. A lot of those abducted persons were currently supporting the negotiation for their release. And I can tell you that most of them attempted to go to the security departments and not much is being done. Rather, they are being encouraged to pay the ransom, and that's not acceptable. It shows a lack of accountability.
How do we ensure this accountability before I let you go? How do we ensure this accountability, especially on the part of the FCT police, for instance? And of course, you talked about the FCT minister as well, how, the collaborations can help, to mitigate, this sense of insecurity in the FCT. But how do we get the security agencies, especially the FCT Police Command, to be more hands-on and communicate more on what's actually going on? Put out circulars. We used to see this before. It's not the first time we're facing insecurity in the FCT, but there needs to be more communication. Is there a reason why there isn't more communication right now? What should they be doing to allay the fears of FCC residents right now?
Strategic communication. Incidentally, as if I knew we were going to have this conversation, we did reach out to them to encourage them, in fact, to offer our support to enhance strategic communication. The media is there, and then I think they also need to improve their presence in the social media space. A lot of Nigerians now, especially the youth that are the vulnerable groups and that are being harvested by these bad elements, are in the social media space. They don't really watch, conventional media spaces the way most other persons do. So I think there is a need for the command to improve, especially strategic communication in that regard. The command is doing a lot. We know that, but then they need to put that out into the public so that the residents of the FCT are aware of what they're doing and they're able to support them more. In terms of accountability, I worry, honestly, and in the last few days, especially after the president, in a very commendable manner, took action against, a minister that was accused of fraud. That action has been commended, but then I worry that we are not seeing similar responses when it comes to security. I even asked the question, are we prioritizing money, as it were, over human lives, which I shouldn't be? So my point is, if in a location, in security balance, we say AOR, area of responsibility. If an incident occurs in an area of responsibility, it means someone somewhere within the security sector did not fulfill his mandate. If there is an abduction, there is a security department that has responsibility for preventing abduction. In the case of FCT, there were abductions. Kayla, not a single person has been held accountable. Last year, we were able to document almost around 300 incidents of abduction and fatalities within the FCT Abuja. At the national level, about 9,000 persons in 2023. Correct me if I'm wrong, not one person has been held accountable. So if we can take action for financial misappropriation, why can't we take action for security, as it were, instances where security officials drop the ball and do not fulfill the mandate for which they've been given?
That's absolutely correct, because, taking accountability doesn't just mean, bringing the perpetrators to book. It also means holding the people responsible for the safety of this area responsible when things actually go wrong. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for this conversation on Dateline Abuja. I know we're going to have more conversations in the course of the year. I want to thank you very much, Mr. Kabiru Adamu, for being with us on the program. And good luck with all the work you have ahead of you. And we'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure, and same to you.
Thanks to Mr. Kabiru Adamu and to everyone who spoke to us today on the program. Whatever is worth doing is worth doing right. When it comes to security in Nigeria, there's either not enough information, giving room for speculations, or too much information on what is not being done, which in turn leads to panic. In response to the growing concerns regarding security along the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, has intensified deployments of police officers and security paraphernalia, leveraging, he says, on advanced technology and strategic resources to bolster the overall security infrastructure along the route. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, has stated that a number of terrorists have been arrested following raids on the Bwari axis of the nation's capital. All hands, we are assured, are on deck to bring back the security we desire in the nation's capital. Meanwhile, learn the security number for your location and have it on speed dial on your phone. Please stay safe. That's Dateline Abuja this week. Please let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handles showing right now on your screen. Thank you so much for watching. I am Kayla Megwa. See you next time.